Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Dennis. Alright, so we didn't think it was ever going to happen because it was taking quite a while, but I'm going to do a Ryzen build. Okay, I'm going to have a separate video on the case it goes into, a quick review of the motherboard, and of course I'll have the build in there at the end to show you, and I'll try and do a complete step-by-step how to put the cooler on, how to prep your motherboard, the whole works, just so you can see everything. So I'll give you a look at the components that's going to go into it. Let's get started. Okay, so what's going to go into our case? First, we're starting off with the Corsair Graphite Series 230T. There'll be a review on that coming up. Probably be before I actually do the build. I got the Ryzen 5 1600. I figured that would be plenty enough for what we're going to be aiming for this. I've got the MSI X370 Gaming Pro Carbon motherboard. Obviously the AM4 socket. And there's a review on that as well. A DVD drive just simply because it's got the room for it, so why not use it. I got a graphics card. Just a couple generations old graphics card, but it'll be fine for this build. And an EVGA 750 BQ power supply. And for memory, I'm just going to use one stick. It's an 8 gig DDR4. It's a Vengeance LPX 3200. All right, so we'll get started on this, and we'll go step by step. Okay, so before we prep our motherboard, we're going to have a look at what comes inside the box for the Ryzen processor. So, of course, we got our CPU. Alright, so you can see that. Get the glare off it. And, of course, we got our sticker so we can have our badge of what we have inside our system. Okay, so we'll get that out in a minute. And, of course, what I wanted to look at is the Wraith cooler. Well, let's turn it that way. I guess it's kind of weird that they've got the AMD here and the AMD. Oh, it's okay. It's on the fan. Sorry, my mistake. And I guess I didn't realize they didn't protect the thing very well when it came out. I actually touched my finger to it. So now I'm going to have to reapply all the thermal paste. Anyhow, we'll go ahead. We'll wipe it. We'll put it back on. That's the joys of building a computer. We'll put that back in there. And we know now we have to reapply thermal paste. Let's look at the Wraith cooler and the CPU. And of course, when I put it on the motherboard, I'll show you how I go ahead and do all that. Okay, so one of the other things I'll just point out, this comes with a 4-pin for your connecting to your CPU on your motherboard. So that's different. A lot of them are 3. It's a very substantial. You've got your spreader. It's pretty good. I'm pretty pleased. It looks like it should do a pretty decent job. And I've watched some other people's videos on it, and the thermals usually are pretty good. So we'll move on to the motherboard now. Okay, so one of the things I made a mistake of, and I'll fix that in my other video before I post it, is it clearly shows that you have to remove the brackets. Okay, the ones on both sides. You have to take them off, and then you're going to mount it directly onto the motherboard itself. Okay, my apologies. The camera, I use my phone for recording, and my camera seems to have let me down. So I'm just going to quickly show you this again here. Okay, you got these brackets, all right? So you got one screw here, and there's another one this side. You just unscrew them from these 2 spots. Okay, there's one there, one here. You take them off, set them aside, and then your bracket is going to go on there. Now, of course, before you do that, you want to put your CPU in. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so one of the things you want to notice on your CPU, sorry, this focus keeps going out here. Anyway, you've got a little triangle here, all right? So be careful how you hold it, okay? Keep your fingers away from the gold contacts, all right? Hold it by the side is fine. You want to line up this gold triangle, all right, that one right there, with what's on your motherboard, which if you look on here, it shows you. It's kind of hard to see, I know. I'll focus in on that just to show it to you a little bit more. Okay, so something to remember when you're going to put the CPU in is you've got a little tab here, so you want to push down and it just lifts up. It's quite a bit different than Intel. So again, just take this, you're just going to carefully, be very careful, and you're just going to set it in. It should just go in place. Okay, so there you can tell. And then the only thing left to do is push this down, goes back underneath. That's all there is to installing your CPU. Now, the other thing I want to point out is this is a part of your back plate in the back. Now, if it happens to, there's a little bit of an adhesive that keeps this on your board. So if you've taken it off before, it'll be loose. But right now, it's in there good. So when you go to put your cooler on, it'll fasten on, won't be a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Now, the only thing I'm going to do is orient it toward the CPU fan where it's going to plug in. So I make it go in the right direction here. So in case you're looking for that and wonder where it's at, it's right here. All right. Okay. You've got it widthwise and then lengthwise. Okay, so this is obviously longer. So when you look at your board, you want it to go lengthwise and widthwise in the right direction. So if I put it here, careful not to touch anything. I just have to fit it down onto those holes. And then I'm going to screw that all in and tighten it all down. Okay, so one thing to point out, just to make sure you guys don't have any issues, when you're putting these on, okay, they do set up just a little bit, so don't be afraid that when you put your screwdriver in, I'm just going to, sorry if I get in your way here, you might have to just apply a little downward pressure on it to get it going in, okay, and it'll only turn so far and then it'll stop. So that's how you know, and I certainly wouldn't over tighten. Corner to corner. Okay, so what happened here is it came out because I didn't have it all the way down. So I'm going to loosen the screws. I'm going to, so that there's less tension so that they don't do anything to the motherboard. Alright, so I'm just going to pause this while I do that. Okay, so I've gone in, I've tightened all the 4 screws, and now it's on there good and tight. You can actually lift the motherboard, and you can see it a little bit kind of poking a hole through here. It's not quite the same as the old Intel ones. You can just kind of see the tip of them in there, but it's in there pretty snug. No problems with that. And of course, the only thing left, and again, this is a little bit nicer than the Intel stock coolers, because now you just find your little where your CPU is going to go on, and you just put it on there. Okay, so that's all there is to it. Now, I'll have to see if maybe there's a way to tie this down a little bit, just kind of tighten it up. Probably just a little twist tie there, just to keep it out of the way, make it look better. But that's it. Our CPU's on. Our cooler's on. Yay. That's it. So now we're going to put our memory in. So if you're only using one memory stick like me, for some reason, which I'm only doing because I'm trying to save some money here, it clearly shows that the second one right here is where you're going to put your DIMM. Okay, so make sure that that's where it goes. Of course, if you're using 2, you can see the 2 of them here. First one and the third one. And of course, if you're populating all of them. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. So the only thing you have to keep in mind here is make sure you put your memory in, check for that little divot, and make sure when you're putting it in that they line up. Okay, so then you push down one side and then the other, and you'll hear them click in place. Double checking that one for myself, and we're good to go. So basically that's it. I mean, I don't have an M.2 drive for this motherboard, so that can be added in the future if I decide to change the configuration or whatever. And that is basically it. I've got the CPU in, got the cooler on, you got memory. It's ready to go into a system and start being ready to be used. So the next thing we do, we take our I/O shield and we're going to install it. So always make sure that this part is to the bottom. Okay, so that your USB is in there like this. Okay, so like that way. And you just have to make sure this cable is out of the way. And so once you got it in the right place, it will eventually just pop right in place. Oops. There we go. That's that one. And that's it. And there we go. I/O shield installed. Now, we're going to put our motherboard in. As you can see, all the little slots here where the standoffs are already in place for our ATX. Okay, so you got 3 across the front, 3 in the middle, and, well, you just go here, and 3 right there. And we're just going to make sure this stays out of the way. And we're going to put our motherboard in place. And the nice thing about this, okay, I'm going to get that fan out of the way. Okay, it's going to go in here. But there's that little, this one here, that comes with the Corsair case. So that holds it in place. And it usually, as you may or may not be able to see, it lines up all our holes for our case here. Now I just double check them all, and everything looks to be good in place. So I'm just going to fasten all the screws in place, and then we'll move on to doing the rest of the system. Don't worry about which part you put in first. If you put your optical drive in first, or put your SSD in first, or you put your hard drive in, the order doesn't matter that much. I do this because it just, once this is in, then I don't have to worry about it anymore. I know I just put in my power supply, put in my optical drive. Everything else just falls into place after that. Because ultimately, putting your motherboard, well, your CPU and your cooler and your memory, once that's done, that's kind of the hardest part, really. So then you move on, put your motherboard in the case, fasten it down with the screws, power supply, so on and so on. And that's what we're going to do. So, here we go. By the way, just in case anybody out there hasn't done a motherboard, put the things down, that's a good reason to keep the case, the little pamphlet that comes with it. So on here, it'll show you which ones are which, the different fan screws, short, long, and which ones are your motherboard screws. Okay, so you can see the size of them, the shape of them. Alright, they look an awful lot like your SSD screws. Okay, but they are just slightly different. Okay, these are the times 18, these are the times 12. So, when you get your little cases in your, well, with your case box, they'll usually identify them as to which one it is. So that way you'll know which one you need to use. Okay, so now we got our motherboard in our case. Now we can go and do whatever we want to do next. So the easiest thing to do for me, in this case, is to put in the optical drive. So you're just going to pull this, but before you do that, you have to release the cover in the front. We're just going to take our optical drive. Just going to turn that so you can see it. So optical drive is just going to go in here. When you slide it in, okay, it'll get so far, lift that up, and now it's going to lock in place. Completely toolless. Okay, so installing your hard drive, it's toolless, but you just have to lift this out. So you just slide it in, and then actually it just locks in place. And that just locks in. Now I didn't use this one here because, I don't know, I just like to have a little more airflow so that just more air circulation certainly can't be a bad thing. So you got a 3.5-inch drive here. I'm not putting in an SSD or M.2. It's a very simple build. I think what I might do though, I might put in a second hard drive down here just to give him more storage than he's expecting. I think it'll just be a nice little treat for him. Alright, so I just put the other hard drive in there. That'll give him 4 terabytes of space. That way if he wants to just leave the hard drive on here and whatever else, but he wants to store all his games or photography or whatever he's going to use it for on the bottom one, or partition them, whatever he wants to do, he's got the flexibility of having the extra storage. And that should give him plenty of storage for years to come. So now I'm going to move on, put the power supply in the bottom, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Okay, so my power supplies, you're going to have the fan face down. It's just going to slide in here like this. Now when you put it in, just be real careful not to mess with any of your USB slots or anything like that. Because if you do that, you could run into some problems. Okay, so just slide it underneath. And once you get, and now it's modular. Okay, you see all these different slots. And that's why you have all your different cables. Okay, and we'll figure out which ones we need plug them in here, and we'll go ahead and connect everything on our motherboard. So I'm just going to put the 4 screws in the back here to fasten the power supply in. And I can show you that too in just a second here. When you get your screws, they're going to look like this. Just short, nothing fancy. And those should come in your power supply box. So you take your magnetic screwdriver, which makes this a whole lot easier process, I might want to add. And you just locate your slots, make sure everything is lined up. Right. And you're just going to put it in there and tighten it up. Now don't over tighten it when you put it on the first time, because you want to make sure that, well, put your second one in first, and then if it's lined up, then you know it's all good. So this one's lined up, so is that one. So you can go ahead and put it in. Get myself out of here so I'm not in you. So that's nice and tight. You can tighten this one now. Once you can see that all your holes are where they're supposed to be, tighten them up, put your 4 screws in, and that's pretty much it for putting in a power supply. There's not really tricky or anything at all. Just real simple. And right there. That's it. Now the only other thing we're going to do is move the case here again a little bit. Carefully. Now you want to feed all your cables, just get them out of the way. Feed them right through the back. Okay? Just be careful, like I say, of the extra cables on top. Okay, feed them all, get them out of the way. Okay, so all I did, once you get your power supply in here, feed my cables through the back out through here. And then I'm going to connect all the whatever ones I'm going to need for graphics cards, which will be your PCIe, SATA, whatever else I think I'm going to need. Plug them all in, do your cable management on the back, and you're good to go. And I'll show you each step of the way on that, just to make sure if there's any questions on anything, you'll know. You'll see it. So a nice thing about this power supply is it comes with your CPU, your 8-pin. So that'll just go up through the top in here and go through that little hole. I'll show you that in a second. You get your 24-pin. Okay, so it's 20 and this will go together. Okay, you just slide it on there like that. I always have to figure with it. Basically, once they're together, they'll be at the same height. Alright, and you'll have your 24-pin. But it also comes with your 2 connectors if you need 2 for your graphics card. These are your PCIe. It says that on here somewhere. Right there. PCIe. Okay. So you've got your 6 or your 8 or your 6 and another 6. So if you need any more, we'll have them with the extra cables that we got. And we'll go ahead and put those through. So the first thing I'm going to do is run my CPU cable. Okay, so I'm going to get this all out of the way. It's going to run up through the back in here. Okay, kind of where my finger is going. And we're just going to feed it up in there. I'll grab it from the other side. Alright, that's the first part of kind of your cable management. Is it'll come up through here and go up all the rest of the case. Okay, so I took my CPU cable, ran it up the back, hooked it out from the other side. And we'll do the same thing with the 24-pin for the power supply. Most of the time it's going to go right up through here. So I'm just going to feed it in there right now. I'll connect these after. And I'm just going to make sure nothing's in the way. Alright. Now see how that's already making your cable management nice and tight. So you're going to have nice and flush in there. And it'll be nice and clean. And then your graphics card is one of the other ones that'll go through. It'll go through the same slot. So I'm going to do that now as well. Alright. So you can notice that this is all going to be nice and flush in here. So it's inset of where your case side panel is going to go. So this is going to be all nice, and we'll use the tie downs to make this even nice and flush. So we're going to have no issues with cable management whatsoever. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is connect our 8-pin CPU power cable, which is this one right here. And it's going to go right there. Alright, so I'm just going to plug that in. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, when you look at the cable here, okay, there's a clip on this side. So when the two of these are combined together, sorry about that. When the two of these are combined together, they form one clip. And on your, down here, there's a clip on this side. Okay, so you want them to go and overlap each other. So that way you'll know they're properly in place. Okay, so now we have our CPU power connector, 8-pin, in place. We're going to move over here, and we're going to connect our 24-pin. Alright, and it goes on exactly the same way. If you look on the side, okay, right down here, you see the clip. So when you put your connector, alright, so this is your 24-pin. If you put these together, just make sure they go together. They're not hard. And this little clip has to go on this side. Alright, so I'm just going to put that in as well. And it only goes one way, okay, so when you put it in, okay, you have to put them both together, but I'm just going to try and show this to you here now. It will only go in one way, so you just have to align them up and then just push them down. Okay, so now we got our 24-pin installed. You got your 8-pin installed, our fans on. So now we're going to move on. We're going to connect our fan here. So we're just going to undo the twist tie on here, unless we don't have to. If this will reach the system fan, then we'll just plug it in, and that'll just tidy it up all that much more. And then I think probably the next thing we're going to do is install our graphics card. And it'll go into this slot right here, because the first slot is your times 16. The next one is going to be your times 8. Well, it'll be times 16 still, but it divides itself. So this will be times 8, times 8. I only have, in my experience thus far, I used one graphics card and two an SLI. And I know that it's either 16 or then it divides into the two of them. And so it's times 8 times 8. Alright, it's just the way it breaks down. Alright, so I'm going to go and make our connections for the fan. And that's going to go, if you can see right here, I'm just going to try and point this out to you, right there. Alright, right here, that is our system fan. Alright, so that's where I'm going to plug this in. And I think I should be able to get it in there without really moving too much around. Just gotta, now when you plug it in, right, you've got a little notch here. Alright, see that notch? And you want to plug that in to where you have your little notch there. Alright, so I'm trying to get that in here. Alright, so I'm just going to plug that in. So you have to turn it so that it will match. It's a bit of a, I may have to undo it, but if I don't, that's great. But if I do, so be it. Alright. So you can see that notch where it's come in there. Hopefully you can. Alright. And we didn't have to untie this. So now it's kind of nicely tucked out of the way. And it's not going to interfere with anything, really. So maybe just tuck that in here a little bit more. There. That's fine. It doesn't hurt anything. Maybe I'll try and tuck it down in here just to clean up the cables a little bit. We'll see. I'll see how that goes. But at this point in time, it doesn't interfere with your fan. So it really doesn't matter. This is going to spin freely. Alright. And this will spin freely. And so, we're going to move on and do some more cable management. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to hook up our SATA cable. So you can see the little L shape. So when you look at your SATA cable, alright, you can see the L shape there too. So you just want to make sure that that lines up with where you're going to plug it in. Alright, so we'll just line that up. Alright. And now the other end of the cable is going to go into your SATA connectors, which are down here. Alright? Or you could use these ones as well. There's two more here. and those are 4 and 3. So I'm not going to use those. I'm going to use 1 and 2 because that's the best ones to use. So I'm just going to plug that in. First I'm going to take my cable. I'm going to move it around through one of the back of these holes, bring it down, probably through this one here, and then I'll bring it in and plug it in. And that'll just clean up the cable management a little bit more. So one thing I just want to point out that I changed is the cable here. There's an L shape on this cable. That's the one you want to plug into the back of your optical drive or your hard drive or whatever it may be. So then I took the cable, ran it down here, brought it out through the bottom. Okay, and I'll just move that so you can see it. So your SATA cable 1 and 2 is the bottom one. This is 3 and 4. So you can plug it into either one of these, whatever one you want to do. Okay, you plug it into either one of these. Because this is 3 and 4, this is 1 and 2, and then your 5 and 6 is down here. Typically for your hard drives, you want to have it on in 1 and 2. So that's what I'm going to leave these ones for. So now I hook up the optical drive, and we're going to get our cables ready from our power supply. So we have our peripherals for plugging in the power, because that's going to go right up here. Okay, and it's just an L shape again. So just in case there's any confusion on what cable it is, it's this cable here. Alright, let me just put some light on it. Alright, so you've got the 3 different connectors, and just in case there's any question on this, that's your connector that goes into your power supply. And on your power supply, you can see on the bottom there where it says SATA 1, SATA 2, you can pick either one of those, plug it in, and then once you power up this later on, that's where your power for your connectors are going to come from. Okay, so I've got the 2 hard drives here. So basically this is your connector from your power supply. Alright, and you've still got your L connector on there. Alright, so when you connect them, okay, first thing you got to do is check what, again, the L shape that's on where they connect. So you can see I've connected the one on the bottom, and now I'm going to connect the one on the top. So basically I'm going to take this connector here, I'm going to plug it into the back right up here, and like I did on the bottom. Alright, just like the same as I did there. And once I've done that, both of our hard drives are connected for power, except for the SATA, which is just the one right beside it, the little small one. Okay, so one there and the one here. And then you're going to have this piece that's just going to be there, but we can fold that down later on and just tuck it out of the way. And basically now we're just going to run 2 SATA cables from here into our motherboard, and I'm going to connect these 2 fans. Alright, and the fan splitter that I was talking about is this right here. Okay, so you have 2 connectors on the end. Alright, just like that. And then this end plugs in to the motherboard. And it'll just clean this up a little bit here. Okay, so there you can see the SATA connectors. So I've used a different color. I've used a red one and the black one, just to give it a little bit of a color going to it, and so that you could tell the difference between the 2 different cables. And I'm going to run that through the back in here, and we'll connect that to the motherboard. And basically that is going to give us the power we have for our hard drives, our connector to our motherboard. Once we've connected these 2 ends here, I'll just show them to you here. So once we've connected those 2 ends to the motherboard, and then we'll have everything powered up, and we'll be able to boot it. But there's a couple more things we have to do. We have to install the graphics card and connect our system fans. So now you can see where I've connected the 2 cables. Okay, so SATA 1 and SATA 2 for the different hard drives. And so now everything's connected. So I've only got this cable left, which is going to be for our PCIe, for our graphics card, which will go in the top slot right here. And on the bottom, right there in that little tiny slot, is where a wireless adapter is going to go. That goes in, there's no power required for it. And so that one will go in. So it just means that we have to go over here, remove these 2 screws, push it into the slot, you know, and then now keep in mind when you remove this card later on, you have to push down on this to release it. And when it'll click up, when it engages, so when it goes into the slot. But after that, we're going to have some cable management, hook up our LEDs, and then we're ready to test this system out. Okay, so we've got our graphics card inserted. Now we got our PCIe power for the graphics card itself. So when you put it in, you just want to make sure that the clip is on the bottom, because that's where it's at. There's no clip on the top. So when you put it in, you just simply push it in. It'll click in place. And the same thing for the other one. You just push it in until you hear it click. Alright, and that's all there is to it for that. Now, you'll see that the cable management's a little messy. Okay, not terrible, but we'll clean that up after. We'll tie some things down, get it all out here. But the nice thing is, we didn't need to use much in terms of cables. Okay, in a nice case like this with a nice motherboard, you can keep it nice and clean. And you can put your cables in the bottom here. Use a twist tie to kind of cinch them all together. I'll get that word right. And it's going to be clean. So we just have our one more card adapter, wireless adapter to put in here. And then we're pretty much going to be done. We're going to fire it up and see what happens. I'm going to cross my fingers because this is my first AMD build, especially for a Ryzen. And hopefully everything works. Because one thing I don't know for sure 100% is the memory. The Corsair Vengeance LPX memory. We're going to find out if it is compatible, which is like they said it was. Okay, so basically I've taken all the cables that came with the case and I moved them to the back. And we're going to use that to connect our power and all that kind of good stuff. But one thing I wanted to show you is this fan here. Basically, there's room in between, sorry, not this, in between here. So I just wrapped it up around, brought it down, brought it up around, back down. It doesn't interfere with this. If it does, it's going to be so minor that it's really not going to matter. And now you can't even see that cable. Like, you can't see it at all, hardly. You can, well, I mean, you can, but it's basically hidden away. So it gives you a much cleaner look. Alright, so because the case doesn't tend to be hiding your cables that great, you can see if a little bit of imagination, you can hide all your cables. See how nicely hidden they are? Everything is all hooked up, power, your optical drive, your hard drives, everything, graphics cards installed, it's all hooked up. I tied it off, okay, in here with a twist tie. Okay, you can see that right there. And you can push these down. Don't be afraid to push these down. It doesn't hurt anything. And that'll just keep it away from the side of the case when it comes back. And you got to remember, because of the window on this case, you're only going to see from here over. You're not going to see all this stuff over here because it's all hidden. So it'll give you a nice clean look anyway when you're all done. Okay, so one thing is I took this cable here. That's your USB 3.0 cable. Okay, so I just brought it from around the back, tucked it in there real nice, and again, it kind of hides it. It'll be all hidden in the back. And now I've got all the other little LED cables, and we're going to connect those down here. And I'll show you exactly where those go. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick look here of my cable management in the back. Just tidy it up a little bit. I used a few twist ties. And as you can see here, it's going to go behind there nicely. So even though it kind of looks sloppy, you're not going to see that once you put the cover on. And you're going to be working from the other side. But it will go on. It'll slide on over top of those, as you can see up here. This is your top part. So your cable's going to, your case's side panel is going to set on top of this on that side. So all your cables are nicely tucked out of the way. Not the greatest job, but for me it works. And now we'll move on to the other side. Now I don't always recommend this because in this case they give you very, very long cables for your LEDs and stuff. So normally doing this might cause you some problems. But because I know I have such long cables, I feel quite satisfied to be able to do that. Put the side panel on, lay it back down, and connect all the rest of the LEDs. And then do the wireless adapter with the Bluetooth on it. And then that'll be it until we do our boot and do our lighting of the motherboard. So you can see the mystic light that's on there. So the next is I'm going to put the side panel back on this and lay it down. Okay, so one of the connectors from your case that you're going to put on is your HD audio cable. Now, one of the things to look for when you're trying to connect it is there is a missing, see where there's no pin, there's just that blank spot. So when you look on your case, and it's almost always going to be the very last one, the one that says J-Odd1. And see that blank space? So as long as you plug it in there, so that plugs in where the blank space is, it'll go on and you're done. That's all there is to plugging that one in. So one of the things I wanted to mention to you is when you're connecting your PLED, positive, negative, your hard drive, your reset switch, and of course your power switch, you need to know where you're going to connect it. So if you look at right in the middle of these little diagrams, one that says JFP1. Alright? So that not only does that show you which one it is, so if you look over here, okay, on the far, you can see the JPF2 and JPF1 on the far left. That's going to show you where you can plug everything in. Alright? So your positive and negative LEDs are going to go on the top, on the left. Your hard drive LED, positive and negative, goes on the bottom. And then your power switch is going to go on the right hand side. And then your reset is going to go on the right. Okay, well, the next two screws over. And the one on the far right of the JFP1 that has a blank space above it, nothing's going to go there. Alright, so don't worry about that one. I just thought I'd give you that. You can look this up in your motherboard manual as well. But that just gives you a quick way of finding out, because a lot of motherboards today will have that diagram on there. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect it. So after connecting my LED cables, so let me try to do this so I can show it to you here. Alright, connected in there. That's where the jumpers are, per the little diagram I showed you earlier. Everything's done. The HD audio's there, all the settings for your power switch, everything else is on there. We are now ready to put the side panel on this case, fire it up, and hope everything works. Okay, so as it turns out, there's one more thing I forgot. See that little spot there that I just took out? I need to put in my wireless adapter card, which is this little guy right here. Alright, I did actually have a video on that. You can look it up if you want to see how that all works. I'm just going to put it in that little small slot. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so it goes in just like that. We're just going to put the screw in here, fasten it on. Right down here, okay, there's a USB connector. So you have to connect that and then connect it to your motherboard with the USB. And then it's all fired up. But like I say, if you want to know how that all goes together, I do have a video. You can look back at my earlier videos and it'll show you how that's all done. And then I'll put the side panel on and fire it up, and hopefully it all boots and everything's good. Alright, so everything is up and running. We have successfully gone. Now it's gone into this is CPU change. Please enter setup configuration, F1 to run setup. Okay, so all I had to do was hit the F2 to load the defaults, and now we're at our boot screen. And now I'm just going to install the software. So I'll go ahead and do that. But I'll show you the system here. As you can see, it's all fired up. I'll show you the front of it. Okay, you can see the red LED fans are all running. And this is kind of cool because this kind of shows a nice red where your power is at and your reset. And again, so you can see the things here that you can change your color scheme from red to whatever you want, but I actually kind of like the red. So yeah, everything's running pretty good. And having that little red cable in there actually gives it a nice little touch. Now, from everything from here over, you're not going to be able to see most of these cables anyway, because this is where the glass goes down. So I'll show you that as well, just so you can get an idea what it looks like. There you go. That's all you're actually going to see. Now, I have to check, because I'm actually thinking there's some plastic on here. And there is, so that's why you can't see it quite as clear as I thought. There's some plastic on the inside of that. We'll take that off after we've delivered it. There's something really cool. When you boot up with this motherboard, that is what you get at the boot screen. If as you're installing your software, that's the picture that comes up. And you just see it's gonna go in, it's doing its boot process. Okay, so in order to get to the lighting effects for your motherboard, one of the things you have to do is install the software that came with your computer, and then go to your MSI gaming app. Once you get to it, you'll see this menu. So you've got your motherboard logo, your I/O cover, your motherboard right track. Everywhere that can be lit up, you can individually select it. So if you want, you can go up to LED effects on, or you can turn them all off if you want to up here. Okay, I chose breathing. You can have it play to music, and you can choose the type of music you want to have. And of course, you can change your color palette to whatever you want. I left it at red because that's what I like, and it fits with the Corsair 230T case because they've got the LED lights in the front. And I'll put it on breathing. I just kind of like the way it looks. It's just my preference. And you got your motherboard LED extended, so you can go on here. You can put that to breathing as well, or any of the different choices. So you got breathing, flashing, double flashing. You got a marquee, meteorite, stack, rainbow, lighting, and random. So you got lots of choices. I like the fact that the MSI gives you all the individual choices for your motherboard to light up whatever you want. Individually, you can have a whole scheme of different colors going on. So I think that's great. And of course, one of the other things I'm going to point out, so I'm just going to get out of here, is you've got your LED, you've got your, like all your different DRAM and CPU fan, all that kind of stuff that you can play around with. And let's see, I'll go back to that. If you have any questions of what they are, you can click on the little icon here. It'll come up and kind of basically explain. Like you can Uni Engine Valley is a new benchmarking tool, so you can go ahead and use that. All right, so you can choose whatever one you want and go ahead and play around with it. And because it's new and it's a Ryzen, there's so much more to explore. It's kind of like learning all over again, which for me is amazing. Unfortunately, I'm building this for somebody else, so I don't get to play with it a whole lot, but I get to play with it until they get it. And here you've got iRest. So what this does is you can change it to gaming for a movie. iRest is basically the blue light. So it'll change the screen so it's easier on your eyes for long term. And of course you can do your own customization. You can overclock it. Now any of these that you click, if you go click on overclock, okay, now this one says it doesn't support this function. Now that's probably because I got the Ryzen 5 1600. But, I mean, if you know how, you can tweak it and probably do that. Or maybe I'm just doing it wrong. I don't know. Like I say, it's a new processor for me, and it's a lot to learn. You can go into gaming mode, and of course, then you got to restart your system to make it effect, which of course would be a good idea to do. And of course, if you want to put it in silent mode so you don't hear your fans or whatever, you can go with that. And your different settings for your mouse and you get your gaming hotkeys, so you can click on that and you can set everything up in here. Okay, Windows keys, login keys, all that good stuff. So if you're looking for a motherboard that gives you lots of options, lots of play, and you want basically a desktop system that gives you all those same options, well, for me, Ryzen is certainly a win. I'm pretty impressed actually, and I hope that you will be if you decide to do the same. Alright everybody, well that's my video. I hope you like it. If you like it, hit that like. If you don't, well, hit the dislike. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you didn't like, what you did like. Give me some feedback on things you'd like to see in the future. This is a complete build. I hope I didn't leave anything out. If I did, tell me. And I can certainly help you with that if need be. This was a great learning experience. First AMD processor I've actually had in quite a long time, and I'm very impressed with it. Motherboard's amazing. I'm very impressed with the motherboard and all the features and all the individual controls that they give you over everything. Alright, if you like this video, think about subscribing and stay tuned for more. Thanks very much for watching. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.